It is lunchtime in Delphi, Indiana. I am here attending every day of the Richard Allen trial and giving you brief updates at lunchtime, and then of course a much longer complete recap in the evening after court is done. So let me tell you a brief synopsis about what is going on today. We have already actually heard from 3 witnesses, so today is going fairly fast. After a very heavy day, autopsy photos, I keep mentioning that Richard Allen hasn't even really been brought up by the prosecution. Well, that changed this morning. This morning, the prosecution finally introduced the defendant, Richard Allen, who this trial is about, because the prosecution's theory is that Richard Allen murdered Libby and Abby. So I was wondering when this would happen. Turns out it's day 6. So the prosecution started. They are just going in order, and they really did set the stage, because how they began today's testimony is with a witness named Kathy Shank. Kathy, it turns out, was helping from almost the beginning of the case. She worked for 40 years with the, was it Child Protection Services? I want to get it right. Department of Child Services. Just want to make sure I got that right. And she was out of town when the murders of Abby and Libby happened in 2017. But the moment she got back in, she said that she wanted to help just by volunteering whatever she could do. And the law enforcement put her right to work. Her jobs changed slowly but surely when she arrived back in March, I believe it was March 1st that she started. Don't quote me on that. I'll get my notes out for later tonight, but it was in March 2017. They put her to work as a volunteer, helping to take tips and leads, and she really wasn't that involved in really digging into the leads or reading the leads or just simply like processing and organizing. Then later on, she explains that she was given more responsibilities and she was asked to file leads and reports, 2 separate things. We'll get into that later tonight. And then later on through the year, she just kept being given more and more responsibilities, sort of proving herself with how valuable and she was. And which clearly this testimony proves just how valuable she was, because it was in 2022 that she came across an old lead and an old report, because there was somebody that a law enforcement that did follow up with this lead of a Richard Allen, who originally called in himself in February of 2017 to state that he had been on the Monon High Bridge Trail from about 1:30 to 3:30, and she caught this. His last name was actually Richard Allen. Was it Whitehead or anyway, it was a wrong name for some reason. They believed that maybe an address had been put in. Whatever the case may be, it was Richard Allen. And Richard Allen, it was Kathy Shank that noticed this old lead, and the thing that she really noticed was that Richard Allen was on the trail at the exact time, and she recalls a woman who had also seen a man that on the trail that day around the 4 p.m. time. Now, she never said Sarah's name. We heard a testimony from Sarah yesterday morning, but she was clearly referring to the testimony by witness Sarah, and she just put the 2 and 2 together. She reached out, she told her supervisors called, all these calls were made, and then we learned that that's when the man who took the report, who followed up on the lead by Richard Allen coming in with the tip line with him being on the trail, that's when it was followed. That the person that followed that up back in 2017 in February was Daniel Dolan. He's a conservation officer of 20 years. He essentially has the same job as law enforcement, but he also is involved in hunting and fishing and does that as well. And so at that time, he jumped on, because all of the law enforcement officials in the area jumped on this case to help, because they just were getting so many tips, thousands and thousands of tips. And so people from all over, and he came on the investigation to assist in any way they needed. And he went to the command center himself, Dan Dolan, and offered his services and he was requested to follow up on any leads, like any tips, like many of the law enforcement were requested to do. And he picked this tip, and he went and he met Richard Allen in a parking lot of a grocery store back in 2017. And he was the next witness actually following Kathy's testimony, explaining how he met up with Richard Allen, how he had switched his time actually by like a half hour that he was there. And that wasn't the only time he switched the time that he was on the Monon High Bridge Trail. And he referred to his vehicles. He did not record or in any way this interview, but he took notes in a Word doc of this interview with him in the grocery store parking lot. And that was the last time anyone ever spoke to Richard Allen until 2022, which happens to be the year he was arrested and charged. So we are clearly following a storyline set by the prosecution. There have been plenty of objections throughout these witness testimonies. And again, I'm going to get in detail more about what Kathy and about what Dan said after we heard from both of them, which was a lot more. Trust me, we'll get into it. We'll get into it tonight. Then we heard once again from Steve Mullins. He came back on scene again to explain how he was contacted with the information about Richard Allen's, and how they actually went to Richard Allen's house and requested he come into the station for an interview, and that he willingly went. He was told his rights. He stayed in there. And I'll just share this. This is interesting. Steve Mullins actually says that he asked him directly if he was the bridge guy. He essentially said, we need to figure out who bridge guy is. And I'm going to get this quote right, because I thought this was a really important part of today. So here's a little something. His answer after asking if he was bridge guy. Yeah, he says, I asked if he was bridge guy, that we needed to work it out and figure out who was bridge guy. And his response, I find this interesting because Richard Allen's response wasn't, I'm not bridge guy. Also, he shared what he was wearing that day, and it sounded exactly like bridge guy, right? A navy blue Carhartt jacket, a hat, army boots, which would have made him taller. But this is what he stated. He stated, quote, if it was taken with the girl's camera, the picture of bridge guy, meaning the picture of bridge guy, if it was taken with the girl's camera, there was no way it was him, end quote. I just think that someone that looked at a picture of bridge guy and knew that wasn't him would simply say, that wasn't me. And look, I don't know what that means. I'm just sharing my opinion and my feeling when I heard that. It was unusual to me. Maybe he was just trying to be reasonable, right? We'll allow the prosecution to continue laying out their evidence, and we will continue to listen to the defense. This morning, I had the honor of talking to Libby's grandfather, who was in court today, sitting next to me, and Dennis. And he wasn't there yesterday because he didn't want to remember Libby that way through her autopsy photos, but he was there today. And so many family is there. Libby's mother continues to come every day with Libby's half-sisters. They're in from out of town. They live in a different state. And then Richard Allen's wife and mother continue to come every single day. Briefly spoke to her today, and she said, once again, that she is learning the information as the public is learning the information. So she's there to learn and to understand. I respect that. I respect that a lot. I respect them coming every single day. That's what I'll share right now for this lunch live, because I actually started late. I had to grab something to eat. We've got to run back in. We had to wait in line again. They're making us wait in line every time there is just a 10-minute break. Every chair is full today. And every time there's like a 15-minute break, they make every person that's in there come back out and get in line again. No seats saved. It's like risking your seat every time there's a 10-minute or 15-minute break, because other people that didn't get in are also waiting to get in. So it's pretty wild. Luckily, I have some people saving my seat while everybody knows that I'm out here doing a lunch live, but I do need to go run back in there pretty quickly. So we're going to keep these lunch lives short and sweet. But again, I will have all the details and the complete recap for you tonight. Thank you everyone for your support. I am just trying to do my best to relay information, and all of you keep me going. I just want to say that. I slept outside the courthouse last night. I think I got there at 11 p.m. last night and slept all morning. I did wake up at about 5 and was able to go and take a shower, have my line place saved, take a shower, get ready today. But I will say, by the time you get into the courtroom, all these people that are just waiting to get in, trying to get in, by the time we get into the courtroom, we're all just exhausted. Everyone's dozing off, because whether you spent the night there or not, I've just learned it's almost easier to spend the night, because other line goers get there at 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. We weren't even the first ones in line. There was a gentleman named Will that was ahead. And so we get in there and we're all just exhausted. So it was a success for me to just shower this morning, to dry my hair and get in there. But I'm sipping some caffeine here at lunch. And I just, again, this isn't just me. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about everybody that is dedicated to getting in to the courthouse and the courtroom every day. They are doing hard work to get there. So I'm going to head back in and bring you the latest update tonight. But that is what is going on today. So 3 witnesses already. Usually by the time lunch happens, it's 2 witnesses. So they're going fast. Richard Allen has been introduced into this storyline by the prosecution, and we are learning, one other tidbit, because I find it interesting. In fact, I highlighted it because I want to ask Dr. John. I want to ask my co-host, criminal psychologist, Dr. Lauren Matthias, his thoughts on this. But Richard Allen is short. That's no secret. And we learned that on a fishing license that he got in 2017, April 2017, he all of a sudden upped his height by 2 inches. So he originally had put 5'4" on his fishing license. And for the first time ever in 2017, April, he put 5'6". Very interesting. Reminds me of the Tellis trial that I also attended in Las Vegas. Tellis was also short, and he lied about his height, and he wore lifts to make himself look taller. Hearing that Richard Allen also was wearing army boots that day, it does make me wonder, forgive that. According to the prosecution's theory, Bridge Guy was wearing army boots that day. They introduced Richard Allen today. It's Richard Allen's trial. We don't know who Bridge Guy is, but it does make me wonder if Richard Allen wears lifts, and or if Bridge Guy wearing maybe taller boots perhaps looked taller. To be determined. All right, I'm going to go head back in there, and we'll see you guys tonight. Thanks. Bye-bye.